We talked about a lot of the diving into brand and things like that. What are some common challenges? Like, what's the most common thing that you run into while working on like maybe and I'll link it in the show notes, but I think like the exposure rebrand is a really really cool example of something that it took a while to make. You have a great case study out on like the process of it, all kinds of different things with it. It seems like working with Luke was probably a pretty cool client to work with, but I'm sure there were still challenges that you hit along the way. What are some challenges that you face in building a new identity?
I would say the number one challenge that a lot of designers don't really respect is just responsibility in terms of like what you're handing to someone. And that's something I struggle with like pretty much constantly of just like, okay, like they hired me to make something really cool, but then I'm handing it off to a team who can't do it. You know what I mean? And that just seems like super irresponsible to me.
Hmm.
And trying to build systems that are like playful, fun, unique, and also responsible is an extremely difficult task. And it's just like that's just the reality of like most of the small businesses we work with. It's just like they might have a friend and a friend who helps them design on the side, or it might be a small startup that has like an intern or a junior designer or something like that. So like trying to make a system work is really, really complex and important. And it's only something that I've been interested in like later in my career. Like before, I was just like, I'm making dope shit and that's all I want to do. I
Yeah.
just want to make dope shit and I don't care about the fallout of like, you can't handle this later.
Can you dive into that a
And so
little bit? I
now,
don't I don't know if all everyone listening will know like what a system, what you mean by that. Like for
sure.
people who couldn't handle it.
Um, yeah. So it's just like, if you're making something in Photoshop that has like 13 layers of blend modes on top of it to get the effect of like a duotone photo or something like that, that's just like really, really hard and complex for someone who's like just out of school or just kind of like figuring out like they might not understand that like you got to turn off like two layers or something to make this other color appear or something like that, or even just color relationships. I think are something that a lot of people struggle with, and like I like to build the massive color systems because like I can use color well and I'm really excited about color, and a lot of people are like, extremely overwhelmed when they get more than three.
Hmm.
And so building systems that are a little bit more responsible in that scenario is really, really hard, really, really interesting, and a very, very dynamic problem to solve in this world. But then same things with like type hierarchy. It's like you got like an eyebrow, you got H1s, H2s, H3s, body, and all that kind of stuff. And it's like it's easy for us because we sit down and we do this all day long. So I'm like, yeah, the H1 just gets bigger, and then the H2 is italic, and then the body copy is the sans, and then they're all good. But like other people don't have that kind of like experience and don't have that knowledge. And so trying to build systems where that is kind of thought out is really difficult to hand off to someone. And that's something that I struggle with in terms of like being responsible and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically, because I relate like I'm dangerous. Like I know enough about Photoshop and enough about like brand design and things like that to be dangerous. So I'm not good at it,
Yeah.
but I know enough to like get by.
Yeah.
But I think like so for what you're saying, so when you build out a brand identity, you're basically building almost like I've heard it referred to as like a brand Bible or a brand guidelines or something like that, where it's different typefaces, different color schemes, different things that you can use in certain scenarios, and then you pass that
Hmm.
on to a design team. So you say that's been tough for you to like manage that part of it versus
Yeah.
in the past where it's been like I'll make you a sick logo, I give you the PNG, and we call it good, basically.
Yeah. Kind of. It's just like, yeah, I'll make you some cool stuff and then you can call me when you need more. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's like, that's a good way to do business because you'll keep getting business, and so that's kind of a good thing. But then just like as you get older, you kind of think about kind of like the longevity of things, and then also at the same time grappling with the idea of like longevity of brand no longer exists. It's like Instagram is a completely different channel than LinkedIn is a completely different channel from Facebook, and like your outside marketing, your website, all that kind of stuff. It's all kind of growing and in this like kind of blobby world of brand at this moment. I feel like we live in this world where nothing matters. Like no websites matter, no, because it's like, what's your website matter if people are only interacting with you on Instagram?
Right.
Like, nobody cares about your website anymore. You could just have a splash page with a cool video on it, and
Right.
then you're done. And then you kind of spend all of your money on Instagram marketing, where no designer I know actually wants to be making squares all day long.
Right.
And so they're like, oh, I want to make big, thoughtful things. But the reality is, like, most of the conversations brands are having are on these social platforms or with like a new weird TikTok sticker or Instagram sticker or something like that. Like, that gets more impressions and that gets more interesting, kind of like dynamic engagement than like a really beautiful website that cost $100,000 and took 2 years.
Right.
Doesn't matter anymore.
Right. How do you deal with that?
So
That's a little slightly cynical. how do you
yeah.
how do you move forward? Because I mean, you happen to work with clients who do still value those things, is my guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tightrope walk, just like how interesting and how can we still be thoughtful about these things but not spend time on them and still remember the fact that like an Instagram post goes up and then it's forgotten about in 5 minutes? You know what I mean? Like, how do you kind of maintain that like ephemeral feeling like in design and in as part of a brand system? You know what I mean? That's such an interesting way to kind of think about it. It's just like, how do you build a system that then can be pieces of it can be thrown away or used in a way that is kind of disposable? And I think the best example I always quote is when Bloomberg magazine or whatever it was did their rebrand in like 2015 or something. And I was like, this is so interesting to see someone embracing the medium. Like, they embrace the fact that you don't keep magazines. Like, you will be throwing away that magazine at the end of the month.
Mm.
So they went absolutely bananas, like on design, on the covers. They're just like, we're going to make these covers the weirdest, like, possible thing you've ever seen. Like, I think they had like a high school picture of Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos or something, or Barack Obama, like just like literally doing like meme culture before meme culture was like a thing on a super respected
Financial yeah.
financial magazine.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that has like, once I saw, and I was in New York when that happened. So I was seeing it every day, seeing it everywhere. And I was just like, this is like the future of design. This is also just like kind of like the future of communication and like disposable quality of brand. And I thought that was really, really interesting. Now I've kind of evolved from that into the fact that, like, you know, phones and everything are in everybody's pockets. Like, even in like the, you know, out in the middle of nowhere, people still have access to like Facebook and whatnot. And I think that motion is going to be kind of like the future of whatever. And you can kind of see that happening in like the Web3 world, how everything looks the same,
Yeah.
like everything is like moving and spinning and whatnot. And I do think that there will be like a piece of that where like literal communication will be happening like through animation, because like I guarantee like 99% of people still have their sound off on their phone. So you can't have an explainer video, but you can bring back like kinetic typography that was like really popular in 2010. You can bring that back into the fold and kind of use it in a new way, like through Instagram, through kind of these digital places and stuff. So
Yeah.
who knows?
It's interesting to think about. Like, I like that idea of almost accepting that there's going to be a disposable nature to what you do as a creator at times, especially if you're sharing online. Accepting that versus like fighting against it. I think it's easy to get frustrated, especially if you're just starting out. If you're just like, man, this doesn't matter, because like you're just you're throwing it into the void of Twitter or Instagram or whatever. But I think like almost accepting and embracing that and building that into a system versus trying to push back against it is really, really smart.
Absolutely.
I think that it's not even just smart, it's survival. Like, I think you have
Absolutely.
to. Have to.
And then once you do that, once you embrace it, you start to have fun. You're just like, dude, let me grow myself, because like you start doing things that are a little bit more weird, a little bit more kind of like challenging, or a little bit more kind of pushes the edge of what what you thought social media could be, or what you thought communication could be. And that's where you get to the exciting stuff, is like once you kind of embrace the jail that we're in, like, you know, decorate it nicely.
Wow, yeah, that's a great way to put it.